Welcome to BIB Today, the daily podcast from the Newsroom of Business in Vancouver. I'm Kirk LaPointe, publisher and editor-in-chief. We're going to make a slight departure today from the typical form of a business-related podcast to meet Anne-Marie Holmes. I've wanted to meet her for a very long time, the award-winning choreographer who has returned this year to the Goh Ballet to stage the venerable Nutcracker this year. Ms. Holmes got her start in dancing 77 years ago in Mission, B.C. She was the first North American to perform with the Kirov Ballet in Russia. She's won an Emmy. We could go on lengthily here in terms of her overall credentials. She's still in this great form at her age of 80. And I'm thrilled now she can join me. Good to see you. Pleasure to see you.
Thank you very much.
Listen, I'm getting along in age. Give me some tips. How do I keep people from thinking I need to be sent to the pasture?
I do water exercises. I go into the water at the Y and where I'm living right now and do exercises in the water.
So
it doesn't hurt your joints, and you're very active, and you can jump and turn and do everything in the water. It's great.
Yeah, I run. I play some hockey.
But that's getting on your joints. That's getting into your joints or your ankles or your knees or your hips. The water is a very good bouncy thing to make you feel limber.
I've never been much of a water baby. I'm going to have to get at it, I think, if I'm going to.
You don't have to swim. You just have to exercise in it.
Okay. All right. But on a professional basis, and you can see this now, a lot of employers, and I'm not putting my own one in here because a lot of us who are at the company are fairly along, but a lot of employers are having real difficulty in coming to terms with the reality of our demography, which is that we're an aging society. A lot of people are still quite healthy. You are, I think I am, into a certain age, and they're having trouble figuring out what to do with all of these older folks who still have skills, still have, of course, have all this great experience. How do you deal with any kind of push that might be there to kind of move you aside?
Well, I don't really have a problem with it because most of the people I work with in the arts respect their elders, and so it's not really a problem for me that way. And also, I have two grandsons that are 5 and 8 years old that keep me very active and busy and keep me thinking younger because they think young,
The athleticism of your craft is extraordinary, of course. And you must have witnessed, though, quite the transformation in how performers now prepare themselves, how they maintain themselves, what they think about now that they never used to, whether it's nutrition or, of course, their own physical training or their mental health in all of this. Tell me a little bit about what are some of the glorious things you've seen along the way here.
Well, I see now that dancers are taking care of themselves more. They're doing things like Pilates and melt and different exercises to prepare their bodies for the onslaught of doing a hard classical ballet, for instance. And there's a lot of contemporary ballet now, too, that is very sort of gymnastic. And so they have to learn to move in a safe way. And that is not easy. I was very fortunate in my ballet career. I was never injured because I was born in Mission, British Columbia, Canada. And I used to run with the Indians and jump on horses and go into ravines and swing on branches and all that kind of thing. And so I learned to fall. And so whenever I did fall, I never hurt myself. And I never, ever fell on stage, ever. So.
Okay, then I'll digress and do a quick question for you on this. You must see parents now with their children in classes who don't want them to fall, right?
Right.
You must just wince when you see that.
I do, of course.
Let them fall. Let them
let them fall. Let them learn how to fall. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's extraordinary also to see over the course of your lifetime of the immense the geopolitical changes, right? Just the sheer, you went into the Kirov at a time when, I mean, we just had the darkest possible suspicions of Russia.
It was red under the bed. Red's under the bed. They call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, here we are now. We have a different kind of suspicion about it, and yet here you are. You're having to stage probably the most, I think, certainly the best known Russian ballet of all time.
That and Swan Lake. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, how do you do it? How do you get yourself? How do you deal as well with the politics of all of this? Do you feel them as you come back and stage Nutcracker?
I feel a little bit because it's so prominent right now in the news, all about Putin and everything that's going on in Ukraine. And I have many Ukrainian friends, but I also have many Russian friends. And it is pretty difficult to deal with because a lot of the ballet dancers that I know that are even Soviet have left Russia because of this whole situation.
Yeah, and is there anything that are there performers that you stay in touch with that are now finding themselves having to seek other countries where they feel they're going to have to set up? I mean, of course, those were there were days where you would defect, and now it seems like you just leave. You try to leave and stay away.
Yeah, a lot of the dancers have gone to different ballet academies. There's an organization called Youth America Grand Prix, and the director of that, Larissa, she has taken a lot of Russian students and placed them all over the world into different academies and places. And there are some dancers that have joined different companies. I know the National Ballet in Finland, the National Ballet in Norway, and National Ballet in Amsterdam. They've all taken in stars from the Bolshoi or the Kirov. So that's difficult. But like, for instance, Gorgaev, who is the artistic musical director of the Kirov, his contracts were canceled everywhere in the West.
Yeah. What did you think of that? I mean, I think there was a pianist who was supposed to play in Vancouver whose contract was canceled right away. What's your feeling about whether that's appropriate?
I think it's very difficult because it's usually not those people. Those aren't the people that are doing the war. The war really comes from Putin, Yeah. And so I feel sorry for those people because they're stuck in the middle.
Yeah. Let me go back because some of the most celebrated dancers from Russia, of course, danced well into their later age, and I wonder whether this athleticism and the Pilates, I'm taking it up now to other types of things, are helping dancers into their later age. Do you see a lot of that still happening?
Yes, but usually dancers that dance late into their life, they're the principal dancers. The corps de ballet are just beaten up so much they usually stop, and at the latest in their late 30s, 40s. But principal, for instance, I danced till I was 45. But like people like Margot Fontaine, Maya Pliskaya, there's a whole stack of dancers that have danced way into their 60s. And that is kind of, but they are principal dancers and they take care of themselves and they can do their own schedule and do what they know is good for their bodies at a later age.
Yeah. when you talk about the troops that are there, or the number of people that are there in a chorus, this production of Nutcracker is, I didn't realize how large it was until, I've seen Nutcracker, I think, 3 times in my life, and they've always been pretty large. But I was looking at the stats for this one here, 200 dancers.
Yeah.
200.
Yeah.
And from 31 schools or something. Honestly, is this just a piece of cake for you to choreograph, or what? How do you do it?
I'd say about 15 years ago, there was an impresario in Vancouver by the name of David Louis. And he was always after me to do ballets in Vancouver. He said, Anne-Marie, you're Canadian. Why aren't you here working in Canada? I said, they never asked me. So I never go. Then he kept pestering me. Finally, I said, okay, I'll do a Nutcracker. A Nutcracker will sell. And he said, good, that's great. I said, I want to do it at the Scotia Centre because anybody can come there. It's not just one studio. So I went there and did it. And most of the dancers that came to this edition were from the Goh Ballet Academy, actually. And then Mr. and Mrs. Goh, who I absolutely adore, took me to China and said, we'll buy the sets and costumes for that in China and outside of Beijing. So we went there. I took designs and whatever. And we had all the sets and costumes made in China and brought them to Vancouver. So that's what started this whole thing really going on at a fast pace. And so that's what happened.
And then you had this little thing called the pandemic, right?
The pandemic came along, yes. But the pandemic has not stopped me too much. I've been still doing ballets in Tokyo and in Helsinki and in Budapest and in all over the place. Because they put big screen in the studio, and I tell them what to do, and they do it. And if they don't do it right, I tell the ballet master, and they correct it, and we do it that way.
Yeah, I find it really intriguing. You've actually turned your art, your business, into something that is virtual. You've been able to adapt that, but you must love the in-person stuff.
Oh, I love the in-person because I love dancers, and I love the way they work and their ethic and all of that. So I really like it in person, but I have been able to do it not in person as well.
Yeah. Have you been able to create like new really strong relationships with people virtually?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I have.
And let me ask you this: if you finally met them in person, have you been surprised? Like, have you?
Yeah, it's a different feel, of course. And a lot of my colleagues, they don't like doing virtual things. They only want to do it in person with the person next to them. But that doesn't bother me too much because eventually I will get to see them and talk to them.
I remember teaching an entire course in virtually for a semester, and at the end of it, I asked the class whether it had any questions for me, and the first question was, "How tall are you?" I thought that was a good.
That's good. That's a very good one.
I think that was fair. Last area, you're not going to do just a basic Nutcracker ever, right? Everyone likes to throw something in.
Yeah.
Don't spoil too much for us here, but have you got some twists and turns that you think you're going to bring in?
There's a few different things with the Drosselmeyer I have in my ballet is a magician, so he makes magic tricks, and so I have him doing that throughout the whole ballet, because after Act 1, all the children love Act 1 because it's got other children in it. Act 2 doesn't have so much, so we've put more children in it and more magic tricks in it.
Okay.
So that helps. And I also took the Arabian, and she's a rhythmic gymnast.
Okay. All right.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, and did you need to rethink, too much of the production and get a little bit outside it, or could you
Yeah,
still?
I sped it up.
Oh,
Yeah, I brought the tempos up to a
well,
fast
I will
pace.
admit for families that it, for little children it can be a long
Remember,
game.
I have two grandsons, 8 and 5. I know what it's like.
So they're your focus group, are they? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they are.
I got it. Do you remember the dates now? What dates we're starting with here?
I think I'd have to ask Chan that.
Oh, Chan Hongo is on our call as well, so maybe you can weigh in, Chan.
Well, thank you, Kirk. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Our dates in Vancouver at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre from December 15th to 18th. And we're super, super excited to be able to come back on stage with a brand new cast this year.
Nice. Thanks so much for chiming in. We had you there and for this information, for this little commercial message, if nothing else. Thanks so much. Anne-Marie, you must have been asked a couple of million times for advice about all of this. I'm still intrigued on what advice you give to someone who is starting out on the shortcuts. I now get asked this after 4 decades. You must be asked it after 7.5. What are the shortcuts? Are there any? And how do you develop a kind of a sustained career in all of this? Do you have basic life advice in there?
Well, one thing I believe in is that you have to really work and love what you do. Don't just do it to do it. You have to love it, because it's really too hard a work to do if you don't love it. And the other thing is not to badmouth the people you work for.
Oh.
Just don't do it. Just swallow it and work.
That's very good. He's a little late for that one for me, but okay. But no, that's great. Those are two really good things. I mean, the loving, everybody talks about it being a passion, but there's a difference between that passion and a love for it, because the love kind of keeps you on it when, frankly, it's not going all that well. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I started dance in Mission when I was, 3 or 4 years old, but I didn't start ballet till I was 9. I went on point when I was 12. I was in Theatre Under the Stars in Vancouver. I was, all over. Then I went to England and then joined the Winnipeg Ballet. And then I went to Russia. And, I mean, my career has just been amazing. I'm writing a book now.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
That's great. That's good. When do you think you'll get that done?
Probably be another year, because with my grandchildren, I can't really write. It disrupts me. So, but
it's
other
amazing.
than that,
we can blame everything on kids sometimes, and now you get to blame grandchildren for holding you up on things. That's good.
Every time I think of a good story, I write it down, and then I'm going to piece it together.
Well, it'll be a great memoir, I'm sure. Listen, thanks so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure meeting you, and continued best success. I mean, it sounds like nothing's going to stop you for the longest possible time, and that's great. It's great that we can have you as a resource in this community right now and around the world. So thanks for your time again today, Anne-Marie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I'm Kirk LaPointe, publisher and editor-in-chief at Business in Vancouver. Thanks a lot for watching.